There's a reason monks in remote monasteries meditate for decades. They're not seeking relaxation or stress relief. They're mapping territories of consciousness that most humans never discover exist. In the Tibetan highlands, the Dzogchen masters speak of 4 distinct realms that open in deep practice. 4 territories where the fundamental nature of mind reveals itself. Ancient texts describe these states. Neuroscience is beginning to measure them, and practitioners across traditions report strikingly similar experiences. Today, we're going to map all 4 territories, not as distant mystical achievements, but as living potentials available to anyone willing to look inward. But here's the warning whispered through every lineage. Each territory requires dying to everything you thought was true in the one before it. Close your eyes for just 3 seconds right now. Notice what's there. That noticing, that bare awareness before thought labels it, is where the journey begins. Let's explore what happens when that awareness turns fully upon itself. The first territory, the realm of the monkey mind. Picture this. Someone sits down to meditate for the first time. Eyes close, intention set, and immediately, chaos. Thoughts explode like fireworks. Did I send that email? What's for dinner? Is my posture right? Am I doing this wrong? How long has it been? 5 seconds or 5 minutes? This is the realm of the monkey mind, and every single practitioner, from beginners to Zen masters, knows this territory intimately. If you're experiencing this right now, comment monkey below, because what you're about to learn will transform how you relate to that chaos. The Buddhist tradition calls this first territory the practice of concentration, but that name misleads. Here's what's actually being discovered. The mind is not under conscious control, and more importantly, you are not your thoughts. Feel into that statement. Right now, there is thinking happening, and there is awareness of that thinking, which means the awareness cannot be the thoughts themselves. The philosopher Descartes declared, "I think, therefore I am." But 25 centuries of contemplative practice uncovered the opposite truth. There is thinking, there is awareness of thinking, and the essence of what you are is the awareness, not the content passing through it. Every time attention wanders to a thought and gets brought back to breath, that moment is the entire practice. That's the repetition that builds something unprecedented. Meta-awareness, awareness becoming conscious of itself. The ancient Yoga Sutras of Patanjali call this pratyahara, the withdrawal of identification from mental objects to recognition of the witnessing presence. This is the seed containing everything that follows. But here's what stops most practitioners dead. The assumption that mental chaos means failure. The opposite is true. The chaos was always there. Now it's finally becoming visible. The mind isn't broken. Awareness is waking up. But something remarkable happens when the fight against chaos ends and pure observation begins. The second territory. The watcher awakens. Imagine watching a masterful puppet show. For hours, complete absorption in the drama, crying when puppets suffer, celebrating their victories. Then suddenly, a glimpse of the strings, a flash of the puppeteer's hand. The show continues, but something fundamental has shifted. Belief in the puppet's reality becomes impossible. This is the second territory, where the mechanics of consciousness become transparent. Here's how the shift occurs. A practitioner sits in meditation. An anxious thought arises. That presentation tomorrow will be a disaster. In the first territory, that thought would trigger immediate identification, lost in catastrophic scenarios, body tensing, breath shortening. But in the second territory, something unprecedented happens. The anxiety is watched arising like a wave forming in ocean depths. Its peak is observed. Its dissolution is witnessed. And in that gap of pure observation, a lightning bolt realization. This anxiety is not me. This is a phenomenon appearing in awareness. Hit the like button if something just clicked, because this is where meditation stops being stress management and becomes radical investigation into the nature of self. The Theravada tradition calls this vipassana, clear seeing. The three marks of existence, taught as philosophy for millennia, become direct perception. Anicca, impermanence. Every thought, every sensation, every emotional tone arises and passes. Nothing maintains solidity. Nothing stays. The philosopher Alan Watts captured this perfectly. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. In the second territory, the reason becomes obvious. What's been called self is more process than entity, more verb than noun, more like a river's flow than a river's banks, continuous arising and dissolving so rapid it creates the illusion of solidity. William James termed it the stream of consciousness, but the Hindu Upanishads mapped this territory 2,000 years earlier. They discovered that the sense of continuous self is like frames in a film, flickering so fast they blur into apparent continuity. And here's the transformation. When identification with mental content ceases and recognition of awareness deepens, suffering loosens its grip. Not because challenges disappear, they don't, but because a dimension has been found that difficulties cannot penetrate. Comment which territory resonates with your current practice, 1 or 2, because the journey is about to enter truly strange territory. Because there's a point where observation itself becomes transparent. And this is where many practitioners encounter fear and retreat. The third territory, where boundaries dissolve. Consider this allegory. A person lives their entire life in a room with a large window. The view outside is beautiful. Trees, sky, distant mountains. The separation seems absolute. Inner world here, outer world there. Then one day, closer attention reveals something shocking. The window isn't glass, it's a thin membrane, and it's dissolving. Suddenly the question becomes urgent and unanswerable. Where exactly does inside end and outside begin? This is the territory every mystical tradition has attempted to describe with inadequate language. The Hindus call it Advaita, not two. The Buddhists call it Sunyata, emptiness of inherent existence. Christian mystics called it Unio Mystica, mystical union. The ancient Upanishads declared Tattvam Asi, thou art that. Not you will become that. Not you should seek that. You are that, have always been that. And the boundaries were conceptual constructions all along. In this third territory, the sense of being a separate, isolated self doesn't just weaken, it temporarily ceases completely. The meditation teacher Daniel Ingram calls this cessation events, moments when the construction of self actually stops. The paradox defies logic. It's not unconsciousness. It's consciousness without a center point, awareness without anyone performing the act of awareness. The 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart wrote, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." This isn't metaphor. It's precise description of what dissolves in the third territory, the illusion of separation between observer and observed. And here's what the texts warn about. This dissolution can trigger primal terror. When boundaries that have defined existence since birth begin dissolving, every survival instinct activates, screaming for retreat to familiar selfhood. The Tibetan teachings call this the bardo, the in-between state. No longer the old identity, not yet stable in the new recognition. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger explains it through cognitive science. The self is a controlled hallucination, a predictive model the brain generates to navigate reality. In deep meditation, that model goes offline. What remains varies. Sometimes infinite spaciousness, sometimes overwhelming peace, sometimes causeless love, flowing without source or destination. The 14th century text, The Cloud of Unknowing, states, "By love, God may be gotten and holden, but by thought, never." Yet, there's a fourth territory that transcends even dissolution. It's not about losing anything, it's about recognizing what was never absent. The fourth territory, the ground of being. This is where seeking ends, not through finding what was sought, but through recognizing it was never actually absent. The sage Ramana Maharshi devoted his teaching to one devastating question. Who is asking? Who seeks enlightenment? Every seeker who approached him received the same instruction. Trace the question to its source, to the bare sense of existence before thought names it, before identity claims it, before the entire structure of self-concept begins. In this fourth territory, what the Upanishads call turiya reveals itself, the fourth state beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It's described as the unchanging witness of the three changing states, the background against which all experience appears. Here's an image that points toward it. Consider someone who has watched projected films their entire life, so absorbed in the images that the screen itself went completely unnoticed. Dramas, comedies, tragedies, horror, all flickering across an unchanging white surface. Then, attention shifts. The screen becomes obvious. The movies continue playing, but recognition has dawned. The screen is the constant. The images are the variables. The physicist Erwin Schrödinger, co-founder of quantum mechanics, studied Vedanta philosophy and reached a conclusion that shook Western metaphysics. Consciousness is singular. What seems to be plurality is merely different aspects of one thing. This is what's recognized, not believed, not theorized, but directly perceived, in the fourth territory. The boundaries that appeared solid are revealed as conceptual impositions on seamless wholeness. But here's the essential truth that prevents this from becoming spiritual fantasy. This recognition doesn't eliminate human experience. Hunger still arises. Pain still registers. Responsibilities still demand attention. The Zen tradition captures it perfectly. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities remain identical. The one performing them has fundamentally transformed. What changes is existential weight, the sense that survival depends on protecting a separate self. Thich Nhat Hanh calls this shift interbeing, the direct perception that nothing exists in isolation, that reality is an interconnected wholeness appearing as separate things. This isn't philosophy to believe. It's what becomes obvious in the fourth territory. The integration, the living practice. Here's what the wisdom traditions understand that modern seekers often miss. These four territories aren't achievements to collect like spiritual credentials. They're not sequential levels where earlier ones get abandoned. They're dimensions of experience that become available and must be integrated together. This is why the masters speak of the pathless path. There's nowhere to travel because the destination was never elsewhere. There's nothing to become because what's sought is already what's seeking. Yet, and this paradox is crucial, the journey is absolutely real. Practice matters. Doors open. Perhaps the first territory is the current reality, wrestling with monkey mind, questioning whether the practice is working. Every practitioner inhabits this territory. The shift isn't that mental chaos stops, it's that identification with chaos loosens. Or perhaps the second territory has been tasted, those moments when thoughts were observed arising and dissolving, when something untouchable by circumstance revealed itself. Those glimpses aren't random. They're the stable state gradually emerging. Maybe the third territory has been brushed in moments of beauty or connection, when boundaries dissolved and separation became temporarily impossible. These experiences aren't separate from formal practice. They're the same consciousness recognizing itself through different doorways. And the fourth territory? It's not waiting at the end of decades of practice. It's the ground beneath every experience right now, the awareness within which these words are appearing, the space that was never actually absent. The 12th century Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "What you seek is seeking you." This isn't poetry. It's precise description of the actual mechanics. Awareness seeking to know its own nature, consciousness exploring its own depths, recognition recognizing itself. So receive this map not as doctrine, but as invitation. Sit, close your eyes, watch what happens. Notice the monkey mind, Territory 1 revealing itself. Observe thoughts arising and passing, Territory 2 opening. Feel boundaries softening in stillness, Territory 3 making contact. Recognize the awareness that witnesses all of this, Territory 4, which was never hidden. Now, which territory resonates with your current practice? Drop a number, 1, 2, 3, or 4, in the comments. And if your experience doesn't fit these maps, describe it, because direct experience always transcends conceptual frameworks. The meditation cushion waits. The 4 territories call. And awareness, the true nature of what you are, has always been present, simply waiting for recognition.